Today, I want to address a topic that I think is not talked about often enough. I have taken a loss recently, and I want to dedicate a video to the fact that I have taken this loss. I want to walk you through the actual trade that I took, the mistakes that I've made, and how did I recover from it, and how did I dealt with that. I think this is a topic that is not talked about enough, but it is oh so important to actually be able to reflect on the mistakes that you've been making so that you can actually deal with it and as a result overcome the feeling of having to take a loss. The thing is, losing trades is simply part of trading. Therefore, the losses that you make must be mitigated. So you always need to have a certain type of risk management in place, and you need to follow certain rules that you've set up for yourself. Well, in this situation, I actually broke some of my rules, and I paid for that in a monetary value, and I took a loss that should have been smaller than it eventually was. And simple as that. I want to walk you through that, and also about the importance of actually taking a loss. As a matter of fact, this idea for the video did not necessarily came from myself, but actually came from a poll that I did on Twitter, on my Twitter, where I gave two options, like what video should I make next. Option number one, going over my losing trade and how I dealt with it, or explain a different kind of video. And just scrolling through the answers, like the majority of the answers was option one. So as a matter of fact, this is actually a video that is requested by you guys. So there we go. I want to start off with going over the trade that I took and the silly the silly things that I did. As a matter of fact, there's a few mistakes that I made, and this being a super transparent channel, of course, I will share the wins with you, but also, as losing is simply just part of trading, this is just part of it. And in order to stay transparent, I have to share this with you guys as well. So I'm just open about it. I'm not gonna, cry about it or anything. It's simply part of trading. And as long as there is a lesson that can be learned from it, then it's all good, because then you can simply do better next time. And that is also what I did, but we'll get to that. So let me first go over the trade that I was actually that did not went so well, and where I did a few silly things. It is a trade that I took as we were taking out the lows over here. As a matter of fact, the overall context was we were hanging around inside this kind of range, which ultimately, given the overall global context, we are still in an uptrend overall. And for me, it proved to be a decent opportunity to look for long trades. However, it did not play out as I wanted to. And that happens. As a matter of fact, I took a trade on a more local time frame, so that was the overall context. At the time, I was actually looking at this channel in this section, which in hindsight now, that was something that I missed at the time, because it was very, very focused on the local situation. And as a matter of fact, I was eyeing for a swing failure attempt of this low, where I was looking to actually take a long and initially just trade this local channel. And if we would have broken out of it, I would have liked to keep a portion open to trade this for a rotation of the overall range over here. Sadly, as we all know now, didn't play out that way, and I was forced to take a loss. And in the process of accepting that I was wrong, I actually made a couple of crucial mistakes that, I paid for it, but instead I think this actually generated a really good reason to make some really good and educational content for you guys. So there we go. I was actually eyeing for the swing failure pattern and a few things that I think I could have improved upon, right? So the trade setup that I was simply looking for was a swing failure pattern over here. simply looking to trade this range, eventually trading it out to this range. So the thing is that I was actually struggling with a few things over here, where I would say I could have thought that out a little bit better. So I was looking at this channel, very well respected, midline well respected, top line very well respected. However, we had a few lows over here, and that caused, I would say, the first spark of, I would say, indecision really for myself. Initially, I was eyeing for this low to be taken out, so on a swing failure type of setup, which we actually did have, and we did have a reaction over it. However, to be honest, I had an invalidation region. This is where I kind of started mixing up ideas into each other. So the first idea was actually taking along over here, and I would say if that trade would have been invalidated, then I would be looking for, a similar type of situation over here or over here. Now, and the problem was, I would say that first of all, I was too focused on the local time frame, and I wasn't really zooming out into the bigger context, because what the most important context that we actually had over here is to be found a little bit earlier in the chart, when we put in this high all the way at $25,000. When we took that high, when we put that high in, we have actually embarked on a pretty strong downtrend, really, with no market structure whatsoever actually being changed. Overall, we had a little bit of a relief rally, but never really being able to put in a higher low really to start getting that strength to the upside. Secondly, the VWAP has been a tremendously important level over the last, week or so, because almost not a single day we really haven't been able to reclaim that VWAP whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it really was resistance. We got rejected here, put in a lower low. Got rejected here, put in a lower low. Here we hovered around it a little bit and, reclaiming it very locally, never able to actually, put in a newer local high at the time. And instead we fell through the VWAP again and got rejected again, until eventually we did got a rally. Also, that one didn't hold up, with another big drop to the downside. And that brought us to this. Well, in hindsight, honestly, I missed that because I was too focused. In hindsight, this was simply a triangle, which, in hindsight, is obviously really easy to say. Like, of course, we're coming from a bearish market structure type of situation, having this triangle. This looks like it's gonna break down. I wouldn't necessarily say I missed that fact, but I just chose to ignore it and instead focus on this trading idea, which I would say is not necessarily a bad idea. But in addition to that, I also ignored the fact that the VWAP remained resistance throughout this entire range again and again and again, and here again failed to holding it again, and ultimately again. And that's when we dropped down, right? So that was a little bit, I would say, silly to ignore my own analysis and just trading, what I wanted to happen, really. That is, I would say, something that I shouldn't have done. And the second crucial mistake was when it came to a certain type of risk management, where initially I said, okay, this is my trading idea. I'm looking for these lows to be taken out, and that is where I would be looking for a rotation to the range. So the way that I went into this trade was initially a nice and clean swing failure type of price action, where I had my risk management actually in check. I took profits, as we were backtesting this channel. So all went well until that. But it was not, it was only till then where I started to mix multiple ideas into each other, where I said, okay, I've taken profits now. That means that I have actually capital left, where instead of my invalidation, I moved my invalidation over here, where I could potentially look to add back into the position should the trade been given. And I think this is where the crucial mistake comes from, where I should have actually closed out of the trade and simply look for a new setup over here, for example, and review the situation. Instead, I was too hyper focused on what was happening locally. I was missing or simply ignoring the overall context here, with the VWAP being super strong, coming off from a really decently good high. In addition to that, keeping that bearish market structure in place, and having formed this bearish triangle at the time. Mixing up my invalidation region with multiple trade ideas and trying to incorporate that into one single trading idea, where even though I took profit, all good and well, I started actually seeing my position going into the red, where I just, without much thought, added into the position as we were taking out these lows. And once again, when we're taking out these lows, only for price to just fall through. And there was my risk management pretty much a little bit overboard. In total, I lost about $5,000-ish, a little bit more, can be a little bit less. I think it was 5,200 to be more precise. In the end, for me, it's not that big of a deal. However, it was not the type of risk that I intended to take on this particular trade setup. So in that regards, I kind of broke my rule of ignoring the bigger picture. And the second rule that I simply broke was something that I rarely, if ever, strive to do, is adding into a losing position, right? And that resulted into a little bit of a silly situation, where I found myself in a little bit of a situation where in the end I was simply forced to cut the loss somewhere midway, as I just realized, like, hey, wait a second, I'm just ignoring all of this, and I was just simply forced to close out of the trade in the drop as momentum was picking up. There were lots of shorts opening up in here, which brought the liquidity quite high up, making it so that, the shorts were right this time on this trade, making it quite difficult at the time, especially for a day trade, to expect that price is just simply gonna bounce. And at the time, it also didn't seem to me like it looks like we were gonna have a bounce. And as a matter of fact, I just had to accept the mistake and simply just take the loss in the middle of a move, which is also not really the nicest way to cut a loss. But hey, in the end, it was a great decision to do so. Even though the loss was bigger than I originally anticipated on, I took my responsibility, I cut the loss, and that is actually one of the best things that I could have done. And this is also the lesson that I have here for you today, which is why cutting losses are extremely important. Cutting your loss means that you are, first of all, taking responsibility of your actions, right? You accept the fact that you are wrong on the trade, and even though the loss might have been bigger than originally anticipated, the fact that you do so proves to yourself that you're actually able to manage a position, right? And not only that, from the moment that you're out of the trade, this allows you to refocus on the charts and actually see, recover from it, reflect on it, journal it, and simply move on to the next trade. Forget about the loss that you've been making. Let go of the fact that you lost money. In the end, it's just a percentage. For me, it was okay. It was not the end of the world, and I'm simply focusing on to the next trade setup. And as a matter of fact, that proved to be a really, really, really nice. Shortly after that, a really nice new trading setup was being presented. As I was looking back on the mistakes that I've made, I was able to actually formulate a channel over this downward sloping thing and slap on a local Elliott wave count. Now fully acknowledging the fact, the chart for what they are, and looking at it at an objective view, where I was looking for a correction type of move taking place, where we were having this downward sloping channel giving us our A wave, which is the first leg of a correction. Then we had a complex B wave with a triangle in the end, and then we had a last impulse down with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of move down. That channel initially came back in play later on, and as we can see, we have backtested that channel not once but twice. At the time, I wasn't so sure if the leg was ending here at the time, but I was open to the idea of actually having this wave 4 over here ending, and the wave 5 being put in. Given the Elliott wave type of thing, I think this is also an acceptable idea. Not only that, this actually happened when you're looking for... it's a little bit difficult to concentrate right now because Bitcoin is actually making a really, really, really large move right now. But I'll just focus on the educational part over here and focus on the content that we're going to make. At the time, zooming out to the bigger picture in play, where we could look at some volume levels over the midterm time frame taken over this entire range over here, giving us the point of control of the range. And that is the level where I was considering, like, okay, maybe wave 4 is not in here yet. Maybe it ends here as we have another move down, because simply the market structure is not bullish yet. And once again, this VWAP level remains strong. It remains extremely strong resistance, right? However, we are heading into a much larger level of importance over here. And that is ultimately what happened, being able to observe the price for what it is, and going over the options that I had over here, being able to recover from it, seeing the charts for what they are, and then once we actually hit that level once again on a much more local time frame, actually reclaiming that point of control. So we take out these lows again, and then we see that point of control being reclaimed, being aware of the bigger picture, allowing me to just simply retake the trade, and having my risk management in place, having a new position on, which actually, as a matter of fact, I'm still in currently. As you can see, this is on the BitGet exchange. Nice exchange, I like it a lot. As you can see, position that I'm in was about $170 in total, about seven and a half Bitcoin, if I remember correctly, taking profits along the way as we had still bearish market structure at the time, but a really, really nice entry, and eventually trying to trade that back up, back to the point of control. And not only that, also the midline of the channel that we have over here. Let me show you. Let me just clean up the chart for a second. Looking for that retracement to come in, which obviously is the place where my take profit was. And as you can see, while I took a loss about $5,200, it allowed me to actually take the charts for what they are, take a new trade, and as you can see, just with that trade, I have now taken profits off of the position as we were having the retracement. Now I'm still having a part of the position open, which after this video I'm obviously gonna review the price action and see what I'm gonna do with the position. But having that said, in total, we can now clearly see, let me simplify this for a second, that with that trade, I essentially nullified the initial loss that I took and actually turned out profitable at the end of the week. So this is the realistic way of looking at trading. Really, one day you are in a losing position. Sometimes you make some silly mistakes, but it's important to mitigate that risk and accept the fact that you're wrong, where you are simply cutting the loss, looking for a new opportunity. And if you do that well, and if you do that controlled, disciplined, with the right risk management, you might find yourself maybe down on the day, but you can be up in the week. And in the end, that is the situation that happened to me. But because I kept my head clear, I was looking for the bigger picture once more, allowed me to get into a really nice trade setup, making up for the loss, and actually come out in green in the end. So that brings about the full circle of how I've actually been doing some silly things in trading, which happens. I'm human in the end. I took a loss. I dealt with it. I took it like a responsible professional trader. Even though the loss was a little bit bigger than anticipated, never brought myself into some kind of crazy situation where this would become unbearable. Even though it was bigger than it was, I cut it on time. I took my responsibility, and just literally shortly after that, a new opportunity actually opened up, and I took that opportunity, and that allowed me to extract fresh money from the market as a professional trader is supposed to do. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. This is a video that I'm kind of improvising, but I'm doing this because I really want to be transparent about it, and I think that just simply doesn't happen enough in this space. There's a lot of people that just claim to be great traders and never make a loss or something like that. That's just not realistic. Everybody makes losses, and it's all part of the game. In the end, it's a marathon. I'm in it for the long run. Losses will happen, wins will happen. As long as you keep your risk management in check, your losses should remain relatively small, and your winners should always be a lot bigger than the losses you're making. And then over time, you will be profitable. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, and check out some more of my videos, which you can find over here. Cheers.